Hi everyone, welcome to another interesting wellbeing conversation. And today I've got a lovely lady called Julie Christian with me, who I met through the Busy Women Club. Her story and some of the comments she was making really resonated with me. So I contacted Julie to have a chat. And here we are now. And Julie's story is quite amazing. And it fits in really nicely. We've just been having a chat before we started doing this about how her story fits in with our theme this month of grief and trauma and loss. And I think when you hear Julie's story, she's a transformational energy work coach. And she also does EFT and yoga, which I'm very passionate about, both of those. You'll see how this story of finding a new identity, following a personal trauma, is very appropriate for our conversations this month. So, hello, Julie.
Hello, Helen. Thank you for having me.
Here we go. Here we go. Let's chat. Where should we start? Where would you like to start?
I think I'd like to start probably with the story of how I found EFT really, and what that opened up for me and what it made me realise about the bigger picture of life really, I think, because I was on a bit of a destructive pattern leading up to that. I was starting a fertility journey, and I was already probably 10 years into my yoga career and my spiritual world, but I was also a bit of a rebel on the other side of that yoga life, and, destructive behaviour patterns that I wasn't really aware of what these were all about. And through this fertility journey, I had some sessions of EFT, and I was starting to learn EFT myself. And one of the sessions that I had actually completely blew me away. It was a lady in London who specialised in fertility tapping. And she uncovered something that just put all my pieces together around my behaviour and my mindset and my attitude and my decisions to do with my exercise obsession and my food relationship and the cycle that I got myself in from literally leaving school. Maybe it started about the second year of secondary.
Yeah.
All the way up to about 11 years ago. All that time. And what that did is it started to open up all these, not cans of worms, but it opened up all these doors for me, really, to realise that the person that I'd been is not who I choose to be anymore. On this fertility journey, I have got to start looking at some of these patterns and some of these relationships and these behaviours. And this was the gold. It was the absolute gold for me in breaking the patterns down, because before that, I was really, my identity was all about, my self-worth was linked to my physical appearance.
Yeah.
And my physical appearance was reliant, in my head, was reliant on the exercise food relationship.
I'm sure lots of people listening now are going to go, here we go, I can relate to this. As a woman, it's, a huge driver, isn't it, in our behaviours and the way we think about ourselves, our self-esteem.
Absolutely.
It goes very deep.
It goes very deep, but I didn't realise that before until I became involved in the world of EFT and understanding like limiting beliefs. Obviously, I studied all the yoga and been studying myself through the yoga work, but not at this deeper level. And this started, like I said, the earliest memory I can remember about this behaviour, about this drive that I'd got, was I think about the second year of secondary, when I remember I've got a vision of me stood in the dinner hall and I would only eat the healthiest thing off that menu. And I looked at all my friends eating chips and this and that, and then walking home eating chocolate bars. And there was something that was stopping me from feeling like I could do that. And then I left school, and then I found a gym, and I found exercise, and I found this whole world of exercising, and I got spiraled into this. Oh, so if I exercise, then that means I can this body temple, can look fabulous, and I can control it all with the exercise, and then I can still control it with what I'm eating. So you could have labelled me up as having an eating disorder. It wasn't because I was eating. I never stopped or starved myself ever, but I had that exercise had to be there. And fast forward into this session that I had where I met a lady, weirdly enough, I went for reflexology, and she started tapping. I was like, what is she doing? And she was tapping, and she was doing my feet, and she started unearthing all sorts of different things around relationships and my self-confidence. And that was the beginning of my actual fertility and EFT journey. So that's when I started to delve into things more with this mentor. But then outside of that, I was working with a Chinese doctor on my fertility. And this is the lady that I went to see for the EFT, who uncovered this gold that linked back to something in my childhood that I kind of don't want to share that exact bit of information. But what I'm saying is that when that came through in that EFT session, it was like, wow, it's just linked to that one thing. That wasn't an actual trauma as in one thing that happened, but it was obviously the environment I was in and what was happening. I was probably picking that up at the age of probably 8 or 9, unconsciously, like it goes into your subconscious. And then these protective mechanisms were, I must stay slim, I must not allow myself to put weight on. So what I'll do is
I think that's really interesting, Jules, because you're defining trauma there in a way that probably people haven't thought about. Trauma can be drip fed over time.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a major life event or something that's had a major impact in one go on you. It can be an undermining of your values, your beliefs, your your whole mindset that can begin without you noticing.
Absolutely didn't notice. No idea.
Well,
There
it
was a
becomes the
block.
norm, and you obviously
Yeah.
moved from school into a life where those norms, you could carry them on. You could continue in that way to make your beliefs and your identity feel comfortable for you.
Yeah, and it wasn't like I was growing up in an environment where there was with food or with body image of my parents or anything like that. So I didn't, my mum didn't exercise, never dieted. It wasn't even a word that was in our household, really. But there was something else in the sidelines that I was exposed to that was identified, that was really like, wow, that protective mechanism there is like this obsession with exercise. I have got to exercise. If I don't exercise, then I need to control what I'm eating. And bringing them both together is okay. But once I didn't have that control, so once that was unearthed and that was discovered, and EFT, as you know, it's like pulling out a big weed. It's like creates a big hole, like what was there and that behavior and that mindset all gets ripped apart and it's gone, and there's like this big gap then, and it's like
it's very much a
weren't
bereavement
aware.
process, isn't it? It's very much a
It is.
grieving and a loss of part of your identity and part of who you are and what you are and how you've been for perhaps many, many years. And finding a way through to changing that part of your identity.
Yeah, and that's where
is incredibly difficult.
Yeah. I felt like after that then I was relieved in a way, because I needed to obviously something had to change on this fertility journey. Something had to change. I had to break those patterns. But I was going through a bit of an identity, I won't call it a crisis, but I was going through a lot of change through that fertility journey, because I knew there were things I needed to change anyway about my lifestyle choices. Massive big firework came in. And so I had to start to readjust the way that I approached everything.
Yeah.
You know,
and was it at that point you decided to train in EFT? Was that the nudge?
So the moment I decided to train in EFT was after I'd had this, the lady that was doing my feet started to unearth some other patterns. And it was at that point when I was teaching yoga, and I was really getting more into, like, I think a coaching kind of role than teaching yoga. And I remember saying to her, I've got to do this. I've got 3 months into the mentorship. I said, I've got to do this. I've got to train in this. And she said, I'll train you.
Yeah.
And she trained me. She trained me to level 2. And so when I had that session with that woman who unearthed all the stuff around my cycle with food, and I kind of, it all dropped in, but I'd never done any work on it myself because I was that busy working with other clients, and this lady was unearthing other things. So I was already on that journey, and that's why I'm so passionate about EFT. And anybody that knows me, that has seen my journey over the last 10 years, knows that it's my passion. My spiritual connection is, and now I think that connection to something else, that consciousness. But the EFT for me and the energy work is, I just think it is the one thing that has driven me forward, created all these changes within me, and all the women.
I think the thing about EFT and hypnotherapy and lots of these other energy practices where you lift emotion out of the subconscious and you break those connecting ties you have with memories and patterns within your subconscious, you break them so that you're free to move forward. I think when you are a therapist yourself, and I practiced EFT for many years and taught it, that you're healing yourself every time you use it.
Absolutely.
So the energetic work that you were doing would have been, even though, you might not have had time each day to work on yourself, you would have been benefiting from
massively.
the work you were doing with other people. They're always your greatest teachers, aren't they, your clients?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think everybody's got to start somewhere, on the journey. It's not about diving right in to, I didn't go to that lady and say, right, let's dive in and find a trauma, let's dive in and find a limiting belief. The conversation started like, how are you feeling about your fertility journey, and what is really getting in the way at the minute, what are you really struggling with at the minute? And I remember saying to her, I'm pissed off because my partner's going off to the gym all the time and he's just carrying on as normal. And I've been told I'm not to go to my spin classes anymore. I'm not allowed to do this anymore because I've got to rest a little bit more and I've got to get a gentler approach. And she felt that in me. And that's when we started unpicking it, like you do as an EFT practitioner, start picking it, unpicking it, going in more.
Well, you work on resistance, don't you? What's getting in the way of you being where you want to be? What's part of this pattern that is blocking you from freedom?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a brave and courageous journey to be on. But it is a freedom journey. And
but
it's
also,
a choice.
I was chatting with a lady this morning, Linda McKenney, about hypnotherapy, but also it can be a very non-traumatic journey as well, which I think is
It
worth
does
sharing.
not. I'm glad you
You
brought
don't
that up.
actually have to go into your trauma. You can be
No.
very vague about the topic. You don't have to discuss details. Your
No.
subconscious knows as soon as you start to work with one of these energy therapies what you're talking about. And you don't need to go there. You don't even need to share. So they're wonderful therapies for anybody
Absolutely.
who is not particularly comfortable about going through therapy. In case they embarrass themselves or make themselves vulnerable. They might not want to cry in a room with you. They might not want to reach that point where they feel out of control. And it's soft and it's gentle and And it goes as far as it needs to go with you every time, doesn't it? It doesn't
Yeah,
take you anywhere you don't want to go, which
yeah.
I love about the meridian work,
I
meridian
think
therapies. Like,
there's so many fears around therapy, yeah, that people do think that it's going to delve into traumas, that those traumas are all
yeah,
dark, and it means they're going to go out and they're not going to be able to cope. But I'm a big believer that what presents will present. What you're ready for in your life to
yeah, I
move
agree.
on with and heal will come through. And if you don't feel comfortable with the person that you're with and you don't trust the person, then that's a block. So choosing the right individual to trust and to be vulnerable with is absolutely key. And that's why I like to talk to people online. As I was saying to you before we recorded, I'm kind of in my business now, what I like to do is talk first about what I offer and have that little bit of connection with people, because you are working on transforming your life. So there could be some dark spots, there could be some
Yeah.
messy bits that we've got to and you've got to be
But
vulnerable.
it,
And
it is gentle enough to just touch base and then move away again, isn't it? And
yeah,
you don't have to feel traumatized, and you don't have to feel
absolutely not.
vulnerable with EFT. I used to use it an awful lot because my background was working with children who'd been in quite serious trauma, and it was a wonderful technique for children who couldn't perhaps even verbalize what had happened to them, or
Yeah,
children have a very different vocabulary to us.
yeah,
They don't connect with some of the words that we use. They
it's
model
amazing.
vocab on what we say to them, and our experience is not theirs. So it's almost a therapy without like the need for language, isn't it?
It's so, what I love about it is so versatile. And you just touched on about working with children. I spent quite a long time working with children in schools doing breathing and grounding, and then I did go into introducing tapping to children, and it blew me away.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah. They're
blew
so
me away.
receptive. Yeah,
And I just love the fact that you don't need to sound it, you don't need to use any words with adults, you don't. It's just so versatile. You can't really get it wrong. Like it's not. I think the thing is, people look at EFT and they often think it's for trauma, it's for PTSD, it's for anxiety. But the way I use it is, yeah, I will use it for those things, but I use it also as a tool for connecting with yourself, connecting with your peace, getting more, not being disconnected from who you are, who you want to be.
mm,
So
mm,
it can be so many different things. And I think that's where it led me on my journey, really, is that when I did start using it with clients and I started working with people, I started to realize that, yeah, I'd trained this way and that was the protocol. But then I started bringing it into my yoga, bringing it into groups,
yeah,
and started, stretching it differently and
yeah,
starting to see how empowering it is.
yeah, yeah. It is amazing. I mean, it's with hypnotherapy, I think the two sit beautifully together. And
Mm,
what I love about EFT, and this is especially for children, that you're giving them a toolkit that they can take away and do for themselves. When they're not with you, when they're not in the room with you connecting, there's no client therapist tie there. They have the ability, once
yeah,
you've taught them the
yeah.
process, and they're rolling with the process, that if they're lying in bed at night, and they're unable to get to sleep, or they're afraid of the dark, or they're afraid of night terrors, or memories, or things that might pop up in that safe space in bed at night, that tapping on the hands and round the face can be a wonderful gift for children when
Even
they're
for adults,
isolated
though,
and feel
because
alone. Absolutely,
you
absolutely.
don't want to be dependent. This is the thing that I like to talk about with people as well, is you don't want to be codependent on that person that you're going to see each week. So right from
No,
when I first start working with people, the first thing that I will do is I will be teaching them how to do it themselves. I'll be teaching them straight away how to
yeah,
use the
yeah,
tapping
yeah,
in their way, on themselves, in between sessions. I've got a library of hundreds of tapping sequences that I share, because I think it's so important to get it into people's hands so that they're not just relying on coming and doing the big, deep stuff. It's an amazing tool for adults, for children, for parents, for go to the toilet at work and have a quick tap while you're like,
yeah, it's very discreet,
before you go back
isn't
into
it?
that meeting.
Absolutely.
It's like can be used for so much, but everything that you bring into the group, it's like every time I look at anything, I'm always like, need tapping. Yeah, we could do some tapping there. Yeah, we could do a bit of tapping on that. Yeah, we could bring tapping in. It's like, yeah, I sound obsessed, but it's because it's changed my life on
You're just passionate because
so
you've
many
lived
levels.
through this therapy, haven't you? And it's really supported you and changed and moved you through a traumatic space in your life to regroup and reset and
Yeah. And
build
yeah.
a new way of being, new behavior patterns, new ways of thinking and feeling, and it's all encompassing.
I needed that in that fertility journey. I needed that because I was spending a lot of money with a therapist in London, a traditional Chinese doctor, and I was being given this advice like, I'm paying him a lot of money to provide me with herbs and advice. So I listened to that advice. There was no more resistance after that session. There's no more resistance around that. So, and I wanted to also, because I noticed that in the group you were talking about grief, and I wanted to bring this in today actually and say that I used it such a lot to support my grief of losing my dad a couple of years ago. Just at a point where I was just using it all the time to support my nervous system constantly through that process. So it is just so versatile of how you can use it to support yourself in your everyday life, but for the big events as well.
Maybe you'd like to record for us, Julie, some little short sequences.
I'd absolutely love to record you some.
How about we do that? How about you do, and you know, people have not much time, and they, you know, we're all, you know, we
I
all
do
struggle.
3 minute. I do. So I've learned this working with women, how busy women are with kids and careers and looking after others and balancing plates, that I actually did these projects that were called, like, I had a 3 minute project, I had a 5 minute project, an 8 minute project, and they were literally there were like challenges that I did where I would promise that I would not go over, because I like to talk a lot, as you can see, that I would not go over 3 minutes or 5 minutes. So I start to produce tapping sequences that were 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes.
Yeah. And actually, it's
so
all you need. It's all you need to
sometimes all you
start the
need is
process.
a few breaths.
Yeah.
But if you're new to it, you kind of need that. You need to go
Well,
through
how
the
about you do
process.
that for us? How about we create some little 3 minute routines, perhaps a morning and an evening one, and we can put them out in the club. And for anybody who's struggling right now to move through this, through a barrier, through whether they're grieving or recovering from a trauma or whatever it is, that they can start to feel the effects. And when this video goes out in the club, what I'm going to do, I've said to Jules, is put her details at the bottom, so you can find her on Facebook and her social media. But yeah, I'm sure you'll get lots of support for doing that, and that'd be really, really brilliant if you would do that.
I'd love to gift that into the space, because I'm all about, you know, getting this out there, getting into people's lives. And if it starts with 3 minutes just to soothe, you know, start to get you soothing yourself, being kind to yourself, etc., helping you sleep, then that could be the beginning of someone's complete journey to freedom or to wherever.
Right, you've committed online now to over 14,000 people that you're going to.
Well, I do keep my promises when it's to do with something that I'm passionate
give
about.
us this content, no pressure.
I only say yes to stuff that I am aligned with. So
yeah, well, let's do it, and then maybe we can look to giving out some longer sessions as well via a link, and we could
tapping circle online would be nice.
Absolutely, we've loads of things planned and loads of things planned for the group. So yeah, but for now we're running out of time. I told you it would fly by.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing
No,
and being
thank you.
sharing another passion of mine, actually, EFT online. And we look forward to those videos.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Okay. We'll speak soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.